Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Gameable Audio, a VGM podcast. Yet again, this is a special, and yes, we are sponsored still by Nordic Game, who promoted and gave me a room to have this podcast live at the event. So today I am joined by Bernardo Vidal, and we're going to talk a little bit about, well, working with sound design, basically, which is going to be super interesting because for me, sound design is such a wide, subject. Like, when we're talking about music, there's different genres and so on. But when it comes to sound design, it is awfully specific because it's so fucking weird at the same time.
Right.
Welcome to the podcast, first of all.
Thanks for having me, Christopher.
Yeah, it is amazing. We actually met almost it was the first day here for me.
Yeah.
And we hung out, we talked a little bit. We were supposed to have on day 2 a meeting, but we connected so well on the first day already that we're like,
let's I guess it wasn't worth to get too formal at that point. I mean, because we actually been hanging out every day. So,
yeah. So this is something that is so amazing with these type of events. You find and you resonate so well with the people, and it's so much fun.
Yeah, I'm having a great time. I mean, it's been amazing. Yeah.
So, in order to get a little bit more glimpse of who you are and so on, where do you come from, and what made you get started in music first of all? Like, let's start from the beginning there. Like, where did you?
All right, I'll try to make the long story short. But yeah, I mean, I started very young. Playing around with tools you've been playing around, as you told me, the EJ sampler, and I
bring out the small blocks. And
yeah,
everything.
just it's sampling, basically arranging blocks, and I was probably 14 when I started doing that, and one thing led to another. My older brother and my cousins were into dance music, or drum and bass or psytrance, and I always it always fascinated me. At that time I wanted to go to parties with them and
were they older brother?
Yeah.
How much older are we talking?
12 years older.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
quite
yeah,
much older then.
Yeah, it was a little big brother, and so yeah, one thing led to another. I ended up going to school and learn music production, and then I wanted to get better at mixing and everything. So I went to sound engineering school. All of this was back in Portugal, and that's where I'm from. I was born and raised in Lisbon. So yeah, I started actually producing dance music I was around my 18s. I started getting gigs. I played in a pretty amazing raves back in Portugal, I got to go to Brazil and do that in São Paulo for.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was. I was working with some pretty amazing producers up there.
They are already at this age. Were you making your own content, or were you more into making mixes and so on?
No. I was making my own music. I did had partners with me at that time. My good friend Miguel. He's in Los Angeles now, working for Insomniac. He's a music director. And my cousin, he was kind of like a brother to me, and we kind of were growing up into it together. So learning from each other, pushing each other. We went sleepless nights while everyone else was playing video games and going to the beach and surf. We would just stay in, prepare music, so we would get these small underground raves. And back then we would take the whole studio to the show because we hadn't even had money to buy a decent laptop, but we were very committed. And yeah, one thing led to another. Yeah, and Brazil then kind of opened up a lot of doors, and doors that led me to Los Angeles for almost a decade, where I toured with Infected Mushroom, and I had the pleasure of tour also with Jonathan Davis from Korn. That was pretty epic.
That sounds really epic. Goddamn.
Yeah, that was very special. I was very lucky.
So already within the span since Brazil, we're talking still about 20 years old and so on, right?
Yeah, when I got to Brazil was first time I was 18, and from my 18 to 20 years, that's where I spent most of the time. I was going back and forth from Brazil and Portugal for a while. And then eventually, yeah, I went to visit a record label in Los Angeles, and things didn't really work out, but I didn't want to leave without making something happen. I ended up in some guy's studio, and he had kind of a name in the psytrance world. He wasn't doing it anymore, but he knew a lot of people, and he left me in his studio for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
And when he came back, I already had one track laid out, and I was starting a new one. And he was like, "Hey, do you want to do music together?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And little did I know that he was really well connected. So he knew the guys from Infected Mushroom. He knew, and he was friends with them. And Spongle, I don't know if you ever heard of him. Simon Posford had. I don't think he's performing anymore, but his music is out there.
Yeah.
Very alternative, unique, ethnical, psychedelic music. He is huge in those worlds. It's work with him as well. And and I was and to pay the bills, I was doing like advertising in the meantime, and doing like short film stuff and ghost producing. I did a lot of that. So I was working for just DJs. Didn't want to spend the time, so I would just sit with them in the studio and make music for them. And at that time it was perfectly fine with me. Yeah. So what ended up leading me to games? So, because that was like the last frontier, something that I had so much passion for, and I'm very much into the interactive aspect. And then I found out okay, I don't know how to put sounds in games. I had no idea from less than 4 years ago. So I've been studying, took a bunch of courses about technical sound design, from learning programming and game engines. And everything.
That's insane.
It's been pretty intense, I'll be honest.
Looking at you coming from the artist scene, to be honest, and during that time, I'm guessing you might have relaxed with a little bit of gaming and so on, but most of the time you actually put into creating and setting up sets, basically, and creating music.
Yeah.
So this turn when you felt like you don't want to produce musical sets anymore, and you felt like you want to start making audio design instead. What was the switch there? Was it that you didn't feel that you're getting the same kind of vibe anymore for producing sets and so on, or what was the turn point for you?
Some of it is what you just said. I just wasn't feeling it anymore. I like to challenge myself, try new things, and it's how I keep the drive. I have to find something that I find that it gives me enthusiasm. I have to be it has to impress me. It has to make me curious.
Okay.
How it's done.
How did you usually tend to keep yourself curious while working on these sets and so on? Was it more of a challenge, like you try to challenge yourself with more, let's say, advanced sets and so on?
When it came to music production?
Yeah.
Well, for me, the challenge was trying different genres.
Okay.
So, and working with other people, that came from different styles. So that was always the challenge. I was always open to go into a music session and just work with a singer that never did dance music or anything, and we would find the middle ground and make something hybrid out of that. And I have a bunch of releases, mainly in the more dance stuff. Lately, not that long ago, I did some ambient soundscape music. That is doing pretty well, actually.
Was that for any special occasion they wanted, or was it yet again just challenge yourself?
Well, it was a friend. He was working with mental health applications, and he needed music. And that was another challenge, because it made me go into research of how you do it, because I didn't want to just copy some presets pads from some popular plugin softwares, and just because that had been done, and I was like, I need to see, because if this application is for mental health, I I don't want to hurt anyone.
Understood.
So I read a bunch about it for, quite some time. Got, pretty much most of the research has been done. I mean, I haven't discovered anything new. Mm-hmm. Although there was a group study with some of the music I did, and with a school back in Los Angeles. I can't recall the name, but yeah, there was a group study, I think of 20 or 30 people for a while. Mm. Yeah, and the feedback was amazing. So I was like, okay, this actually works. My friend was working with kids with autism, and I got to be in some of the sessions where he was, doing the whole mental health healings things, and I saw how it, the impact.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like, okay, I need to keep doing this, because like it was the reward right there, just to seeing how good it did to that child.
Yeah.
And it humbled me so much. It was like, yeah, this has nothing to do with me. I can, I've done the research, I can do this. And yeah, I felt like I was doing something that was not just for me. So
yeah. But at the same time, when you did all the musical sets and so on, you did something for yourself, but you're also providing a pleasure form to everybody else who's listening in on it.
Yeah, but it went beyond like I was doing that with dance music, but then actually
working with awareness and
with a different with children, I guess.
And I'm guessing for me, I've been working back in the day as a swimming teacher, for example, and not seeing kids drown makes me feel happy.
Right.
so I can understand. This was like a pure super example. It's just black and white. But I understand the kind of reward you're getting when you're actually seeing something has an impact where it could matter. Because if somebody comes to a show and just dances, it mostly like they're happy, they feel alive. But when you have an impact on somebody that can theoretically change their life for the better, it's so much better. It's so much grander what you're doing.
Yes. I mean, it really humbled me. It made me go on a mission, and I did a lot. I have a vast library for this purpose.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I want to implement into games.
Yeah.
I want to bring this approach into games. There's a lot of room. There's a lot of beautiful indie games, especially that visually are amazing. And I've played some of these games, like Journey. I've played Journey with my music in the background. I mean, no offense to the composer Austin. He's a genius. He's fucking brilliant. I mean. But I had the music. I had the project of the session open, and I had just and I was just playing the game next to it, and I was like, yeah. And then I kind of just clicked. I was like, this actually fits really well. And so that was kind of like a discovery. Like I stumbled upon something, but almost by accident.
Yeah.
I didn't plan it really. It just revealed itself. And then the whole sound design approach is not as holistic, but my sense of attention to detail of like making people feel shit, like to make them or very disturbed, or I like to stir up people.
You basically like to tap into emotions.
Yes,
with
much.
The audio.
Yes,
but that sounds very great for what you're about. That we're going to talk a little bit about. So like audio design, working with like things and bits and pieces that impacts the experience and immersion of a game. Just like music, it can either make it or break it for immersion as well. But how you interact with the world actually like increases to like a whole other level as well. Like during Nordic Game here, there are so many different kind of games, but one of the favorite ones was that they worked on the sound a lot, but they haven't worked on the visuals. And just to like draw up this picture, it was you were shooting with a Tommy gun, and they didn't have the visuals of the bullet casings flying out, but they had the audio on it. I didn't care that it was missing the visuals, because to me they were still falling on the ground due to the audio. So from the perspective of where you come from the technical scene, I would say, because you're working more with digital audio rather than like utilizing sounds and recording to that extent, I guess.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so you're manipulating audio.
A lot of it comes from digital sources, or I mean, except for recordings, like field recordings. So a lot of the stuff I did record, so that will be like the analog part of that.
But is this something you want to explore more on as well? Like go more out to start recording outside and get more organic vibes as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I have a pretty good app on the phone, and if I don't have the recording on me, I find something cool, I try to catch it as fast as possible. I mean, just the other day there was some construction near the apartment I'm staying, and it was very upsetting sound, like from this digger and the tracks, just like steel just ramming in each other, like it was like demonic stuff. And I just like, okay, I stopped there for 3 minutes, set up and recorded the whole thing. I mean, I don't know if I'll use it, but I love to work on
it. Will kind of be added to your library.
Yeah.
Because you never know that is also like the hoarder mentality. It's like, oh, I'm gonna save everything, but when are you gonna use it? Never know.
Yeah, with samples is like that, because I mean, now hard drives are huge, and I mean, you can or upload it, have it in cloud, I mean, and I share a server with a friend, so we both populate the server with samples.
Oh, okay, so that's also now audio guy then.
Yeah, no, he's I mentioned him, Miguel. He's a sound director in a big company in LA. Yeah, so we've both been collecting samples together for almost 20 years. So,
considering that you're making a sample library together, are you noticing any patterns that you are covering and noticing more sounds of a specific type, for example, or are you both like trying to find audio everywhere all the time?
Well,
it's like
I live close to the beach, so yeah, a lot of times what I'll get is sounds of the ocean,
seagulls.
Yes, indeed. And I've just noticed the seagulls here sound different from Portugal. I was like,
language barrier.
Yeah, localization. I couldn't believe it. It was like, wait.
You can just record that as the seagulls here in Sweden, and it's like, oh, Swedish seagull.
I missed it just because like there was a bunch of people speaking, and then I didn't have the phone right there, because that's the thing a lot with your field recording. If you're not ready, you miss it.
Yeah, I think that is also one of the more interesting part about sound design in that sense.
Yeah.
It's like you need to be right there at the right moment,
right.
and just like a millisecond thing could break the whole sample itself.
But yeah, like it was funny because like I looked at this, I was like hearing the bird, and I was like, what kind of bird is this? And I looked, oh, it's a seagull. I mean, it didn't sound like it. It's like crazy. Yeah. But anyway, like I mentioned this because like this was the whole talk of localization, and Sebastian talked about this a bit in his talk earlier.
Yeah.
About using specific sounds for specific places, or expressions, and I mean he mentioned like ways to laugh or to grunt, and the people he said like people from Japan grunt differently from people from here, Europe. And then that when I saw the eagle, like that came to me. I was like, yeah, eagles grunt differently in Malmo, in Sweden.
They do.
Yeah, it was hilarious anyway.
Yeah, but doing with everything. So do you notice anything specific other than that? Like, or is it just because of convenience that you are close to something environmental that changes? You're not making any specific like. You're like the guy who likes to do construction sounds and so on.
Well, I like noisy things that could be applied into horror, or very like because that's the horror for a sound designer is dreamland, because you can go. I mean, for me, I'll speak for me, but I'm pretty sure most would love to have opportunities to work in that genre, because you can go so far and be so weird, and you have to go beyond realism, and you actually have to tap into how is it making you feel. And yeah, it's not the best of feelings making people feel like shit, but if that's the purpose, then
I find it interesting that you're talking specifically about horror as well. So when I was in school, I actually did like a thesis, not a full thesis, but I kind of deconstructed horror games to just like find like the core piece and so on. And music and sound design plays such a large role. It's like if you turn off the music, it's not going to be as scary. And that goes the same for movies as well, of course. But when you were talking about alien sounds, it's so interesting that we can twist and tweak so many sounds today with utilizing equipment, technology, and so on. But at the same time, it's usually very organic sounds that we're utilizing. But because of these tweaks and turns that we do, it sounds very alien. Like, I think the best kind of horror sound you can make is to make a sound that nobody has heard before.
Yeah,
and people are scared about the unknown.
Yeah, and when you get the chance to do that, when you can get out of the realism and expect the expecting sound from something, you can just like do weird shit. That's the best. So I did a short film recently, a horror thing, and the director asked me to do a horrible screaming sound from this entity that was in the film. And she gave me a reference from a classical version of The Exorcist. It's like a very old one. I can't recall exactly, but she gave me a reference, and it was just like agonizing scream. And I was like, okay, that was a great reference. He was very specific. It's like, I want something like that. And I remembered like opening a session just to do that one sound, and I got to a point that I must have had like 30 different layers from everything, like from pigs screaming, from other animals as well, like birds. I had like pigs and birds, like weird stuff, because birds make the most amazing sounds. And
is there any specific sound that they're more excelling in, considering sound effect?
In this case,
yeah,
I think it was a pig screaming. That was so agonizing, because it actually is, and I mean, the reality is like, the sounds that pigs do when they're suffering is horrible. If
they have that really high-pitched squealing.
Yeah, and it's agonizing, really, for us. When we hear that, and I know that for a fact, that is a terrible sound for us. And you layer that with, some just scratching sounds, like, kind of like needles in the board.
On the chalkboard.
Yeah, stuff like that, mixed with pig screaming. And, I mean, I did humanize a little bit with my own voice, and then pitched it, because this was supposed to be a female ominous being. So I tried to get it, a little more, play with that. But I remember then I had to kind of start cutting stuff through, because I mean, 30 layers to make one sound. You can get off track, but it was an amazing opportunity. And so I just love when you can just like go crazy. And just,
Considering where we're kind of ending up with technology and so on as well, I mean, it's almost unlimited today. I mean, doing 30 layers is perfectly acceptable if you can get the right sound you want, theoretically.
I mean,
do you feel like would you like to limit yourself when you're creating new sounds, or do you feel like let's throw everything in and then limit from there?
Yeah, that's my approach.
Yep.
Like I have the sound. I analyze what I'm going for. I hear what the client wants. I see the intention. I looked at the film, and then I just open my sound libraries. I kind of do a little research, and I just start throwing things in. And then after I have 30 layers, I start moving, samples around. So placing them in different spots, playing around with pitch, EQing, volume, time stretching, until like you can find a place for each one, and during that process you'll find like, okay, there's some that overlap, and you have to choose, and then you kind of have to compromise in the best way, because it's like, okay, this is just muddy. If it's just mud, I mean, take it off. You gotta. It can be upsetting without so many layers, and yeah, sometimes it's actually better to mix. But yeah, that's how I do it. Yeah.
But considering also when you make this the layering and so on, what is the hardest part usually that you like go into?
Picking the ones when you have like a lot of good sounds. Like sometimes it
comes down to killing your darlings.
Yeah,
that we talk about in the industry.
I mean, it's just like, there's sometimes you have 3 really good options, so you kind of have to just throw the dice.
Yeah,
because like there is no better choice.
Okay.
It happens. It happens that you have like 3 amazing, perfect, good choices. You have to just like close your eyes and just like point or throw the dice.
And then you accidentally close the full and you didn't save, and you're like, no.
Well, I've learned that lesson way back in the day. Now I fucking back up everything.
So you're looking between the fingers a bit before clicking.
Oh, I have like my backup set up really good.
Oh, sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, trust me. Yeah.
But also considering the research that we're talking about, like when you're about to make like, for example, the Scream again. When you do the research for that one, is it more about like the theory behind making that Scream, or are you researching more like, what other sounds exist already out there?
Yeah, I would say both. I do go and see with our like famous screams in horror movies, or things that just have become like just known, well known. And it's not a bad idea just to head to little check on that. It depends. It could affect your creativity. It could take you in a particular direction. But because the director gave me a very specific example of the film, and I heard what she showed me what she wanted exactly. But I just wanted to, see what else had been done, just for curious. It didn't take me long, because I was like, okay, I've heard enough. I'm just gonna, go dive on this.
Oh, okay.
And the terms of the research of what could work was just see if something would pop up. Just because like I knew like the pig sound stuff and the birds, I knew that, and I was like, what else could be there? And then sometimes it just clicks in, like, for example, the nails on the board. At the moment, I wasn't thinking of it, but then on the research, something came up. I was like, yeah, that's exactly. So if I layer that with these things, it's just gonna be like agony, to the square. It's like pigs screaming and nails on the board. It's like, just like, please kill me.
Everybody has that feeling that ever had that happen to them for real.
Yeah.
How would you feel like today if a younger, like a teenager or something, they cannot relate to the same like we do? Like the nails on a chalkboard. How many people own a chalkboard today?
True. True, but
is it just like a generic scary sound that does that? Because one of the bigger issues when somebody was having their nails on a chalkboard, you could feel the pain down to the core. You get like this goosebump when somebody's like drew their.
It's more where I meant by that is kind of just a generic idea of it. It is the rubbing of something, usually metallic stuff, rubbing against something else.
Yeah.
It will do that kind of a scratching, screeching sound, because the sound that we're familiar with in movies from the nails, that's sound design. It's not how it sounds in reality.
Definitely.
So that's just like, the idea of that sound. So it just gave me that idea. I was like, that kind of, scratching sound.
Yeah.
idea.
And that's really one of the most interesting things about sound design. I've seen a lot of these like behind the scenes Disney when they worked with sound design. It's like, oh, these walking around is actually this. You thought this was that. And it's like, oh, swords doesn't sound like that when you swing them, but it makes believable when you see them in a movie.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting to see that the most common noises you thought was like, oh, I always sound like that when I do this shore or this thing. It's all a lie.
Yeah, we wished it did.
Yeah.
You know, especially like with fight movies. It's hilarious. Like all of that. I mean, the hitting sounds. Everything's done with pillows. Whatever. Like it could be on foam. It could be like a
rubber or something like
feather
that.
pillow or fabric or hit the mattress, or it depends, or hit a piece of a baseball bat on like some pillow or stuff like that. That's where you'll get
those sounds.
Yeah.
It's insane. I love it, and that's why I think talking about this subject is really interesting.
Yeah.
But considering a little bit more, as we want to pan over a little bit, you haven't released anything game design, like game sound, as of yet.
No, just game jams.
Yeah. And considering game jams, then I mean it's still liable in my opinion, because game jams is usually where a lot of creative ideas kind of flow.
Right.
So when you joined in, how many game jams have you been joining in so far? Is it just one or more?
Completed? Seven, if I'm not mistaken. Around that. I did 2 global game jams, and I have a little more than a handful on itch.io. Those were the completed ones, and then as many uncompleted ones that are not, let's say, published, whatever. But yeah, I'm always down to jump in, because it's been good practice just to see how the other roles and departments work, to speak with the artists, visual artists, and with the programmer, especially.
Yeah, and you already had because of the studies you did, you have the implementation part as well.
I haven't done that much on game jams. Most times you don't have enough time. Unfortunately, that most of the game jams I've done is like you have a weekend, and unless the programmer is very savvy with middleware, then it's just better to work with him and implement in the engine, and that I'm still a little limited, but I do try to have a very open conversation with them and collaborate and ask them to teach me if they can. But
also over time, I mean, working with game jams, as you pointed out, they're very time restricted and so on. I guess that's a good way for you to actually start compromising and working with your sound library as well, like to actually get completed audio cues.
Yeah.
How do you feel like working during these like crunch times where you have this limited amount of time?
I mean,
like in the beginning, I guess it was more work.
Yeah, I mean, it's usually audio is the last in the chain.
Yeah.
And I've learned to kind of keep my ego in the pocket, and I'll do as much as possible. And usually I overdo it in terms of I have enough music for an actual game.
Yeah.
Like for a 3-level game, at least, and sound design for every single aspect, and then in the possibility of we have time to implement everything or not. If we don't, and usually we don't, we usually end up implementing, half of it if we're lucky.
Yeah.
But I'm totally fine with it. It's like, I just kind of want to team up, see how it works, and it's not about me. A game, you're a bunch of little cogs working together to a bigger system, and that's what I want to do. I want to be that cog that kind of helps everything move, but it is one of those pieces that it's not crucial, mostly crucial. I mean, it depends on everyone's opinion, but I do understand that the most important part was going to be the visual aspect of it, because it's our most sensitive sense. It's our eyes. So that first that needs to be addressed, of course. I mean, in most cases there are musical games, so that would music would be more important there, but they're not as popular or known. At least,
One thing I found interesting as well is, working with all these game jams and so on, of course, you want to get into like either in-house, or do you want to be freelance, for example, when you're working with this later as you move along?
I actually would love to work in-house for a while. If it works out, I'm open to stay longer.
Yeah.
Because just like I said, I love to work in a team, and I'd love to have that experience. I've been working, as a freelancer for most of my life. I've always kind of been outsourced.
You want to try the other side now?
Yeah.
See if it is greener.
Kind of. Yeah.
But how's the development in Portugal as well? I know there's some like digital nomads and so on moving around in Portugal. It seems like game development, it from what I know, it looks like it is big. But you who live there, how is the status on game development in
I mean, there's maybe 2 or 3 companies that are a considerable size. They're definitely doing AAA games.
Yeah.
Very closed systems. They don't mix too much. But and I can't say if that's why is that exactly. But there has been a lot of initiatives to help new people get into it. And there's a lot of students, there's a lot of courses, so you can learn a lot about it. So I can foresee in the near future, more opportunities for, new studios over there. I'm sure, it's very common for Portuguese people to move out of the country and to find, and spend some time out. We're travelers for sure. I mean, you'll find a Portuguese in almost every corner. I guess it's very because I believe it's the lack of the opportunities.
Okay.
So small country with people with big ambitions, or at least curiosity, and so it's getting better. I would say that.
And considering what you're interested in as well, we talked a lot about sound design as well, but you also have done music. It's like, do you want to have the full picture that you want to do both, or do you want to be more towards one or the other?
In the music aspect, I want to focus in the ambient soundscape stuff to complement the sound design.
Okay.
So there are gaps, there are moments in gameplay you don't really want a soundtrack, like a full musical piece, but it's good to have some ambience to add to and sometimes it's not just having the realistic ambience, what you expect, wind, birds, ocean, forests, whatever.
Yeah.
I believe it's good to add some layers depending on whatever type of game it is. If it's a happy game, then adds some tones or something sustained that kind of helps enhance the experience. I think there's room for that. Also, although silence is important as well, especially when there are anticipating moments. I believe if you want to surprise someone, it's good to you fade things out and people notice. But if you have something going, it's like you're immersed in that, and all of a sudden it fades out. You're like, whoa, what's gonna happen? And all of a sudden, stinger on you, and that's gonna like whoa, So I think. Silence in music and for whatever aspect has, should be used, in a very intelligent way. It's definitely important, but you have to use it smartly. It's not just okay, now we're just traversing around, just have birds singing, whatever. And for most of it, but you can play around with some tones there, like very subtle subliminal stuff. So when it cuts out, something important is going to happen, then you'll notice. Yeah. It's
so interesting as well. Of course, that is very prominent happening within horror genre.
Yes.
They play a lot with the silence is so powerful when it comes to that, because you like you said, you play with anticipation.
Yeah.
But considering when we're talking about like general video games, like even though silence could be like a good structural property to utilize within the game in order to empower something, it's like when you're making your dance track and you have the drop. It's like you have the anticipation going up, building up that, and then you pull the drop, and then everybody's just having a great time jumping and doing random crazy shit.
Yeah.
So there are similarities that I see parallel to within game design, not game design, sound design, and also music. So it's always fun to see the connections going in between, or maybe it's just me making this parallels to just make sense.
It's a very good observation. Yeah, it is kind of like that. Although the drops, I did always liked very noisy, busy build-ups, and then drop with just a bass drum and a bass. So I would love to like hype you up, like it's gotta like go, gets to this immense like build up, and all of a sudden just like when it drops, maybe there's like a little 4-bar break that goes into some bridge kind of break thing with some rhythmic thing, or usually a vocal is fun. Just say whatever. I mean, I've used a lot of movie quote, just word stuff. From The Matrix, you name it, like Pulp Fiction stuff. I did that mostly in the Psytrance days, but then when it drops, it's just like bass,
Yeah.
And usually that will get the crowd insane. I mean,
It's like considering all the games that are out there, I'm guessing you are a gamer as well.
Yeah.
So, considering from audio perspective, which one is it that you like the most that you can like on top of your head?
Oh, okay.
Sorry for the big question.
I know exactly how to answer that. Hyperlight Drifter.
Hyperlight Drifter.
Yeah, the guy that did the music, he's called a Disaster Piece.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm getting goosebumps of remembering that. And his stuff is good. I got a lot of inspiration from his stuff, and we have friends in common. I haven't met him personally, but I know people that worked in the studio. It's Heart Machine. They did the game. I know the audio directors. I know sound designers, and I know a lot of people that know someone in that studio or worked with someone. So I'm a big fan of Hyperlight Drifter and the soundtrack and what the Disaster Piece did on it. And his stuff is on Spotify. I highly recommend it.
Yes.
And I love that. What he's doing. If I want to hear like some cinematic, things that get me like emotional and get into that fantasy kind of mindset. Yeah, perfect. No, nails it.
As I remember, I can't remember the soundtrack how it was like on top of my head, so I can't hum it or something like that. But from what I do remember of it, I felt like that soundtrack was, even though it was like playable pieces and they work by themselves, even though it kind of felt like there was some sort of just ambience to them, like giving the emotional structure to the environments themselves. So it wasn't like a hardcore like drum and bass kind of vibe. That just felt like, hey, we're pulling on adrenaline here. Like, oh, you have this fighting, gotta go wild. No, but it felt more serene.
Yeah,
like you said, like more cinematic.
Yeah, it definitely. I mean, it wouldn't. I guess. Yeah, I like the approach they did. I mean, there are fighting scenes in the game. Yeah. But yeah, they did. I guess the approach they took, it really fits visually and the story of it.
It fits the world.
Yes, it fits that world for sure. Yeah.
So I have 2 more questions, and like I usually say to my guests here on the episode, we always want to end the questions on the high level. So we start with a bad one, of course. So when it comes to producing these sound effects and even working with music, like what is the hardest thing you have to work with? Like what's the most you're struggling with?
I mean,
seagulls.
Well, funny you say that, because I live near the beach. And my studio has a pretty good sound isolation, but there are days that if there are a lot of seagulls, and they will cut through. So if I have to record something, I have to wait until night.
Okay.
To do it. Yeah.
So you have more of a time issue then.
Well, with some particular things, yes, I'll have to wait until like sunset to kind of things to chill down, because like it is crazy how loud the birds and seagulls can get, even with, you know, I mean, it's not soundproofed as like the most, you know, amazing recording studio. I didn't make like that because it's still at my house. And yeah, I haven't got that deep into it in terms of, you know, making it completely mute from the outside.
So in order to just mute everything, would you need like one of those like sound boxes then?
Well, if it's for voice recordings, you can do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have to do what it's called an island inside the room.
Island inside the room.
Yeah, so basically you have to kind of, you know, make fake walls and like very thick ones.
Oh.
And you need to make, you need 2 windows, one after another. You need a, you know, space in room between them. So, because the air between the 2 surfaces will help dissipate the sound. And usually 2 doors or a very thick door.
Right now, it feels like you're kind of explaining the movie Hypercube or something.
Yeah, I mean, then it depends of what's your purpose with it. But yeah, I mean, I would say creativity sometimes can be tough, but I've learned how to work around it. It's just doing. So even if you're stuck, sometimes you don't think, you just do.
Just do.
Throw stuff in there.
You just go with the seagulls.
Yeah, it's like with the sound design. That's what I was saying. Like, you know, before I decide the direction, I just pick stuff. This is nice. Oh, this is nice, and I just drag everything in, and then from that process, the creativity starts kind of coming.
Yeah. So in the future, we might hear a scary horror track made with seagulls.
Yes, definitely.
You must be.
I can go around the world and record different seagulls.
Yeah, Spanish seagulls.
I can see there's no library with, you know, seagulls from, you know, different
around the world.
Swedish seagull, Portuguese seagull. I mean, it would be
beautiful.
Is
it Sweagles?
Sweagles, yeah, definitely. Listen, yeah, we're joking, but it would actually have. I'm sure they would use it because some people actually care to use the specific animals from specific, you know, and if it's properly done,
it's niche, but somebody's gotta get it.
Yeah, you know, it could actually. That's a good idea. I'll take that. Yeah,
that's a free from me.
Thank you.
And now we have a full like audio audience that might like, oh, he's getting seagulls.
Okay, I'm the guy too, the go-to seagull guy.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
No, but we're already laughing, so the best segue of all is, okay, let's end it up on the positive one. What is that you like the most when working with audio?
Horror.
Yes. So, have you ever scared yourself with an audio?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
it's like starting listening. Somebody's behind me.
Yeah, I mean, I left the volume knob too loud. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And someone just came in the studio and pressed play, and it just blasted. And yeah, I almost fell out of the chair.
Oh my god.
So that fucking
So it is a double-edged sword then. Have you ever tried? Because another thing that usually pops up from time to time is like, do you usually just listen to the audio yourself, or do you usually have some sort of feedback? Like, hey, I want you to listen to this.
Oh, yeah, I'll do that all the time.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'll ask my friends all the time. I love to be criticized and have feedback, and I just, like, lay it on me. And I love how the more specific you are and relentless, the best for me, because that's how I learn.
And just like Philadelphia that I got you to try.
Right.
Are you also going to be, do you also meet friends like, oh, no, I'm not listening anymore because you're scaring the shit out of me every time?
Yeah, well... yeah, no, I mean, I'm good. I'm very comfortable with, criticism and feedback. That's how I've got better. That's how I and when I'm lucky, because surprisingly, not everyone, wants to take the time to do that. But I have a few good ones that will do that for me. I have good friends that will not be kind to me. They'll just be honest.
Awesome.
So yeah.
It sounds great.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and that is basically the end of the episode here.
All right,
I don't have any more questions and so on. So
good, I think
for people that listening to this episode, like, how can they get in contact with you if they have any follow-up questions? Maybe they have a gig where they need some audio for.
Well, you can contact me at LinkedIn. Look for Bernardo Vidal. And I'm in Twitter as well as Blair Vidal. So Blare Vidal, Vidal.
Yeah. Of course, all these notes or links will also be provided in the episode description as well. So
yeah, then I'll just send you my my website page, and and then you can find everything there, like all my real stuff and links to like Spotify music that is out there. But yeah, I'm out there. Come and find me.
Come and find you.
Yeah.
He's in Portugal, people. By the seagulls. So that should limit it a bit.
Yeah, follow the birds.
Lisbon.
Follow the birds.
Awesome.
You do pretty birds too, don't you?
I do.
There you go.
Not seagulls, though. So I'm less annoying. That's what we're saying here.
Oh, well.
No, in all honesty, it's been an honor having you here. It's been an honor getting to know you a little bit over the Nordic Game Conference that we're
Same,
at.
likewise.
So, it's been an amazing. My name is Kristoffer Schenström. This was this was Gameable Audio, a VGM podcast, and I was together with Bernardo Vidal, and this was episode 40. It's crazy. It keeps going up. Number go bigger.
Yes, I look forward to it.
Yeah. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for listening in on this week's episode, and as usual, take care, everybody, and see you all guys next time. And with that, we're back till today. And yes, still on my vacation here. Hope you enjoyed this pre-recorded episode over at Nordic Game Conference with Bernardo Vidal. I am your host, Kristoffer Schenström, as said in the episode. You can find other episodes of the Gameable Audio on our homepage, videospelsklubben.se, on Spotify, or in your closest podcast app. Feel free to follow and comment on one of our social medias, either on Facebook or on Instagram. Just search for Gameable Audio. You can also support this podcast for future content upgrades or quality upgrades. But also in the end, future composers, think about becoming a Patreon. Our current awesome backers that we do have today is Daniel Olnemark, Lars Schenström, Titti Schenström, Kevin Wikström, and Mike Björkholm. Thank you so much for being part and making sure that this podcast is kept alive a little bit with financials and so on. Links to where you can either buy and support behind Bernardo Vidal. You find these in our main post at videospelsklubben.se. And in the next episode, we're going to have the last guest from Nordic Game Conference, his last pre-recorded episodes from this event. And this is a creature feature, as we're going to talk to the voice actor Sebastian Croteau. So do sit in, and if you enjoyed the other episodes, this is one of those episodes where we talked about this guy in all the other episodes from Nordic Game, because we were, right before we started recording everything, we were at his talking about how to make monster voices. So this is a super exciting interview that I had. It was very unique. Still, each and every interview is very unique, but I am super excited always for the next one to follow through with. The episode theme music was, as always, composed by the amazing Thor Myrdal. Yet again, I am your host, Kristoffer Schenström, and I want to thank you all for supporting and helping me out and listening in on each episode. Thank you all, everybody, and have a good week, and see you all guys next time.